What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Justin Rodriguez, your favorite lender here at Neighborhood Loans. And we are back with another episode of Cafecito Talks. And I hope everybody out there got their cafecito on deck. We're super excited to announce our guest today, guys. And we also got a special guest. First off, Mark. He's the man, the myth, the legend behind all the editing of our videos. So shout out to Mark for joining our episode today. And also, Fernando Labastida. It's a pleasure to have you here, man. You honestly, when I look at people that I want to interview on my show, you entitle everything that, I'm actually looking for, because honestly, bro, I think it's super important to have individuals who are doing what you're looking to do yourself.
Yeah.
And especially for the Latino community, and just the things that you're doing and showing people that you could build generational wealth just from following the path of mentors, learning every single day, and just looking how to become financially free. But I think everybody wants to know, man, what do you do? Who are you? How old are you? And just how was your path to get to where you're at?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Mark, for inviting me over. You know what? At first, when you told me about the podcast to come in, I was like, what can I offer, But then you started pointing out some things. I was like, whoa, I think you're onto something, right? And I don't give myself too much credit for it. But thank you very much. I'm still admiring the view right here out of your sixth floor. But anyways, I'm Fernando Labastida. I was born in Mexico City, so I'm full Mexican. I was right here to the U.S. when I was 4 years old. Obviously, right? And it wasn't my decision, right? It's had a lot to do with my parents' goal of achieving the American dream, right? So I came here, grew up here in Chicago. I consider myself a Chicagoan, right? So my home is here, and as growing up, I living in being in the traditional Mexican household, right? Father always working, mother is a stay-at-home mom. Mother's the one always, taking care of me and my sister. And sure enough, that's pretty much my background. I ended up going to high school. I graduated high school, and after high school, I was not sure if I wanted to continue to pursue further education. But my parents, being the strongest supporters ever, they're like, "Hey, you know what? Do something, right? Set an example." And sure enough, something's in my mind is like, okay, let me try college out. I ended up going to community college. I was like, what career path? But one thing I did want to mention before I move forward, one biggest reality check was when I tried to apply for FAFSA. And I went to FAFSA, knocked on the door, like, hey, can I get some money, to go to school? And they told me, it's like, you can't. I was like, what do you mean you can't? I can't, And they're like, you can't because you don't have a social security. I was like, that was the reality check for me. I was like, whoa. I'm like, I being not having that social, it impacts people's lives. I was like, I was one of them. And fortunately, my dad had always told me, he's like, hey, save up. And eventually I saved up a couple of $1,000. And I remember, like, when I went to college and obviously applying for my first courses, they told me, it's like, it's going to come out to X amount. I was like, okay, well, I have my savings and let me give it a shot. But before that, I had already thought about, I'm like, I cannot be affording to pay for school for something I don't really want to do. And there was this whole dilemma with my peers, like, we don't know what to do, right? And I can assure you, anybody that comes out of college are like, they have no clue what they want to do. They have a slight idea, right, of some interests that appeal to them. But in reality, it's like, if you go to school, and it turns out that you don't like whatever courses you're taking, you have to go back to square one, right? So I had to really think about that. And my dad has a background in automotive. So my dad has been a technician from the stories he's told me, ever since he was 17 back in Mexico. My grandfather told him to manage his own little shop. And my grandfather was managing the other second shop back in Mexico. And so my dad, if you ask me, he's been an entrepreneur since the very beginning, right? So coming to the States, he ended up working for a shop, right? And that has been his background. So I went back into school and I was like, hey, let me give automotive a shot. I ended up going to Truman College, and on Truman College, they had the automotive program. And at first, instructors like, hey, you can try your basic certification. You can then try to apply for the advanced certification, which is taking more courses, right? And then eventually, if you want to graduate, you can graduate with your associates in science and automotive technology. I was like, okay, cool. I did so the first 2 years. Again, saving up. By the way, I was doing full time school, part time job. A job. I was working with my dad. I was getting the hands on training, and sure enough, going to school at the same time. It was a struggle. It was a struggle I can recall, especially since I'm not working full time, but I still got to save up to pay for next semester, right? So it was something that I was already contemplating about, right? I'm like, do I continue going to school or should I just focus full time at work? And eventually, the biggest motivators were my parents, right? My dad, my mom was like, hey, let's set an example here because we are here as visitors, as guests, right? That was what they would preach to me. It's like, you guys have to set an example, me and my sister. Try not to get in trouble, right? Especially because we're not from here, so that always resonated towards me, right? And so eventually, I got to get my associates, and in my school, there was a transition program to a 4-year college to SIU. And they had the automotive program for getting your bachelor's. So it was funny. You had to take schooling for SIU on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday. And I still had to do the last, general education courses and so on, right? 4 years, for 3 or 4 year courses. And I remember during that time, I was like 2021, and all my friends were partying. All of them were partying, going to like the bailes and all that. And you know what? I was like, I got homework to do. I'm like, I don't think I can go. And you know what? Yes, it did. I come to find out, when I actually focus on school, like my friend circle got smaller and smaller. And sure enough, I lost some friends, gained some friends, but eventually it worked out, right? So at some point, I was going to school Monday through Sunday. Right, Monday through Sunday, I was trying to finish the associates courses, and I was trying. They had already started the 4-year courses for Saturday and Sunday, and I remember I did that for like a month, and I still worked part time with my dad. And I was like, man. So I did that for a month, graduated with my associates, then I fully transitioned to the 4-year, right? Courses. The fortunate thing is that this program, it was only Saturday and Sunday, right? It was optional if you want to take courses during the day, right? You can even take online, which is a very benefit because then I focus into working full time with my dad. So I was making quite a bit of money, right? And I was like, whoa, I could work with this. Yeah, I can work with this. And sure enough, graduated in 2015. I graduated with my bachelor's in science, bachelor's in arts. I'm sorry, been so long ago. I can't even
But
remember.
how did you juggle all that? Like, what was your mindset?
You know
through all that?
what? It's hard. Well, not hard. It's just putting dedication towards it, right? I guess a lot of the factor was not disappointing my parents. All right, that was another big major motivation for me, right? I didn't want to let them down, especially my father, because my dad he's the strongest person I know. He's the most hardworking individual I know, and like he was my motivation to, I can't quit here. I got to finish what I started.
Was your dad trying to push you to another career, or did he want you to become a mechanic?
You know what? My father has always told me, or told my siblings, right? Pursue whatever you want to pursue, right? As long as you're happy in doing so. And sure enough, again, that resonated. And there was another thing I wanted to pursue. So a funny story was when I was in college, I took an IT course for technology. And I started working with computers and a little bit of coding. I was like, man, this is freaking awesome, And I only took 1 or 2 courses, if I last recollect. But the thing was, going back to the whole money situation, I was like, man, I can't afford to start all over. I'm like, I'm already in this. Let me finish it. Then eventually in the future, if I want to go back, then I will, So I got a taste of that, and I was like, no, you know what? I can't get ahead of myself because of financial reasons, right?
Mhm.
So I graduated again, and I recall my very first job, and I say my very first official job because with my dad, I considered to be like, I don't know how you guys were characterize it,
Did you have a
but
choice?
I had no choice.
Right,
There
yeah,
you
you're
go.
like,
There
I
you go.
had
But you
to.
know what? That helped a bunch because
Mhm.
I grew up in the south side of Chicago,
Yeah.
and it was during the years, my teen years, it was not that great. And I remember like some nasty people outside were hanging out on the block, right? It was they playing daylight, and I remember I was outside. I was hanging out with some friends from my neighborhood, and I remember my dad came up to me. He's like, "Hey, let's go inside. Help me out with this car or whatever." Little did I know, he was actually trying to pull me back. It's like, "Hey, don't go with them. Like come with me, work with me. I'll compensate you by giving you money at the end
Right,
of the
and then
week,
they
right?"
taught
Did you know that at
And
the time?
I'm sorry,
Did you know that at the time?
I did not know that at the time, right? I was young. I was 19, 18 years old. And as I look back at those times, me being 29, I'm like, man, he did this for a reason. He did this to
His
guide
purpose.
me, and for me not to go to the bad paths, that a lot of
Yeah.
my peers around the neighborhood did, right? But I'm the prime example of that. Like I didn't go that route. And a lot had to do with my parents guiding me, right? So pushing me forward to do better. Graduated, going back to my story, graduated college. Going back to my first official job, I recall it was being a technician for a startup company, somewhat like what Tesla was doing.
Yeah.
And they were doing spotter trucks. If some people don't know what spotter trucks are, it's those little weird shaped trucks that move the containers from from door A to door Z.
Yeah.
And this company remove all the diesel electronics and put battery packs on them. So literally you can charge them up like a regular Tesla
Oh, wow.
nowadays. And at the time, I remember back in 2015, it was like a Tesla was like, what is this company doing? And I was already there. I was like, oh man, I came across the technology, and at the time I was not truly fascinated, but my angle was to start with them and transition to Tesla. That was my whole angle there. I'm a
Do
big.
you own a Tesla?
I do not. I was about to, but no, I kind of had to hold off
What do
for
you drive
other.
now?
I drive I drive a very humble vehicle, 1998 Honda CRV. That's my personal
There you go.
vehicle.
That's
Yeah.
insane. 'Cause
Yeah.
Obviously, you're very successful, but
Yeah,
why do you
yeah.
stick with a nice car or old car where you could have, exactly like a new Tesla or
Funny
newer
story.
truck?
My dad was the one that told me, I'm like, hey, I want a new car. He's like, you don't need a car. Every car does the same thing, It takes you from point A to point B. It doesn't matter how it looks. And that resonated, so.
And it's funny he says that because we actually, one of the first times I met Fernando was actually, we went to Paisans. It's a place that down on the south side. It was the first time that I actually encountered him, and we were there for like 2 hours, and we're talking about financial freedom. We're talking about all the things that he's currently achieving that I look up to, right? And that was one of the conversations we had. He actually was about to buy the Tesla, like he was putting the deposit down and everything to buy the Tesla, and he didn't. And we were with one of my boys, Eddie. Eddie was there, and he was like, "Oh, I want to buy a Tesla so bad." And the first thing that he said, and this is what everybody should listen to, is invest in appreciating assets. Don't invest in an asset that's going to depreciate. He's like, right now, I really wanted the car, and you're always going to have your emotions that are going to tell you what you want, but it's not until you actually realize that you have to invest in your future. It's not about the cars. It's not about the fancy things. It's about investing in your future, so that way you can afford these things where you don't even have to worry about it, right? And that's the point that I want to get to. I don't want to have to work. I want to be able to say, I don't have to work, but I choose to work, right? And that's always been the motive and goal when I got into my industry. And when I met you, bro, I swear on everything, I'm like, yo, this is what I want to see the future of my business growing. And not only just with investing, but with taxes, with all the things that you're currently doing and that you have learned over the couple of years, bro. That's all that I ever wanted to kind of
Yeah,
figure
brother.
out in
No,
the industry.
appreciate the commentary there, but you're right. I was on the point of buying the Tesla, And I don't know, for whatever reason, it wasn't working out, the finance,
Yeah.
because I was trying to put it under my company name, but my company didn't have much track record, you know, of profit and losses. And they wanted me to give a big down payment. And I was like, nah. I'm like, I have the money. I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm like, it's pure stupidity.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna hold off. Funny story, when I canceled my delivery thing, the following week, Tesla had like giving like $7,000 off of every new vehicle.
Oh.
I'm like, good day I didn't take it. You know, I would have been screwed over. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, guys. So went to school, and then after that, I was in this other company for a year and a half, I would say. My father came to me and he's like, hey, they have a building up for sale. I was like, oh, where? He's like, oh, so and so streets in the south side. I was like, okay. I'm like, what are you trying to do? He's like, well, I want to open a shop. I was like, okay. At the time, I was pretty fed up with this company that I was working for. It was all repetitive things. And I was a lot of traveling too. I was traveling 50 miles a day, and and just doing service calls on these trucks that they were not perfect. Obviously, startups, right? So I was ready to walk out, and my dad again approached me, and luckily I had saved some money. I saved some money, and my dad obviously had his savings too, and we came down with 33% down, and the owner financed us the building for 5 years.
Nice, dude.
So that's how I ended up going into the business with my dad. At first, my dad was not, my dad at the very beginning of opening shop, he thought I was going to be another worker. And he was all talking to my mother about like getting a office secretary and all this. I was like, I graduated school for an automotive, you know, they taught us somewhat how to, you know, manage
Run the business.
and you know, read people and how to, you know, manage a small team. And I was like, no, I'm gonna be the one in the office, and you know, we're gonna start getting employees. So at first, it didn't sit well with him. He thought we were gonna be like together there, but you know, I said it straight. I'm like, no, I got a higher education for a reason. I'm like, I'm gonna manage the business, and sure enough, 6 years later, we're still going strong.
How many employees you got?
So currently, we have about 10 employees, including myself. I think it's 11. Yeah.
Wow.
So
And you didn't even think about failing. Like that was
no, I was talking to Mark, and I was like, he brought up the questions like, oh, did you ever think about failure? I was like, you know what? Never thought about it. I just went in because my dad was like my guidance. My dad was the ones like, hey, let's go here. Let's open up this shop. I was like, okay. I didn't even think if clients were gonna come through our doors or not, because he already had a clientele. A little background story on my dad. He was working from his garage, my family garage, for 10 years. And he always kept it low key. And my dad built up the clientele base. And when we moved over, everybody followed us over there.
Right.
And sure enough, at the very beginning, it was a little bit intimidating because I was like 24, 25 when we first opened the shop. And I remember I would call customers up and be like, hey, you know, I'm Fernando, calling from Labastida Auto. And I would explain to them like what their car needed. And then one time I recall somebody is like, no, you know what? I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Alex, which is my father. I was like, sir, I'm letting you know, like Alex is under a car. He cannot take this car, you know? And he's like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, what?
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
I was like, really? And that's where I first checked in. I compare, I'm like, whoa, you know, my age with starting a company, like not a lot of people are used to that, you know, seeing a young fella like talking to me about money and all this. And I was like, okay, I kind of set that as a challenge. I'm like, okay, let me build this trust with the clientels. And
How did you overcome that, by the way? Because it's true, though. I see it a lot happen, definitely with younger entrepreneurs. You know, people could look at them, don't take them serious, don't think they have the experience or authority.
Mm-hmm.
So how were you able to establish that authority, you know, to build that trust and that loyalty with your current clients?
You know what? Great question. It's, I guess, throughout the years of being in the business, I guess it's just learning how to talk to people, right? If they question your ability, you tell them, I'm like, sir, there's nothing else I got for you. And like, this is what's broken. This is what we're going to need to do. This is how much the parts cost. And this is your final bill. and they're like, I guess what in reality they wanted to do is get a little discount, right?
Yeah.
Because my dad was always lenient, always lenient. Oh yeah, give it to him at no cost or whatever. I'm like, no, dude. I'm like, we're in business. Business
make
is
money.
to make money,
Right.
right? So overcoming the people is just it's getting a better communication with them, right? Talking to them like, hey, like I'm here to provide a service so I can get you back up in the road much quicker, right? And when you talk to them, right, and with professionalism as well, like, okay, they kind of calm down and like, okay, you know what? Let me give you a shot and fix my car.
I think it's all about building that relationship. Like the way you put it, it's just, everything in business is relationship based, right? And I feel like when you first start a business, it's really hard to build that credibility without having that relationship and trust. And I think the number one part of entrepreneurship is exactly what you said, is that having that mentorship. Because I like to say I have 20 years of experience through my mentor. Maybe I don't have 20 years in the business, but I know my mentor does. And any question I have, he's going to answer it. Right. So it just has that level of confidence because you have that mentor right in front of you. And it allows you to answer all those questions, allows you to be confident when you speak because you got that person right next to you.
Yeah, that's true. And that person next to me was my father.
Right.
Whenever I would get stuck in a situation, I'll go to him like, hey, what do I tell this customer that is giving me a hard time? Oh, well, tell them X, Y, Z, and it will work. And I will learn from that. I was like, okay. I'm like, and eventually,
Yeah.
he kind of started letting go of me and taking more control, letting me take more control of the office. So that kind of worked out very good. But yeah, 6 years in business, guys, and I wanted to point out that I in reality I never had this entrepreneurial mental thoughtness, right? Because I recalled like at the very beginning, I just figured I'm like, oh, this is my 8 to 6 p.m. job. I didn't think much of it until like about 2 years ago. I started. I read, and everybody's probably gonna recollect this book. I'm like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then something clicked. Boom! I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, what is this thing about buying assets? And then I connected the dots. I'm like, we own this building. I'm like, whoa, I'm already one step ahead. So when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, like my mindset switched, A lot of people contradict the book, but I was like, no, that was the Bible. That was the Holy Bible for me. I was like, whoa, I'm like, you can buy this building, take out this money and buy more buildings. Like, so that was what engaged me to seek this financial freedom. So again, 2 years ago, I read the book, I got hooked, and I was never this big study person. And then out of the blue, I decided to pick up another book, and I started reading. And it was a book based on how to reduce your taxes. I forgot the name. I'll bring it up next time. But of one of the Rich Dad series, and I read it. I was like, whoa! I was like, taxes, reduce your taxes to zero. I'm like, you're telling me I can buy a phone and put it under my business, and I can reduce my tax burden. And I got hooked. I was like, whoa! So I started reading more books. I read Napoleon Hill. I read another couple books, right? But then everything had to come to a pause because then I come to find out that my wife was pregnant with my first son, and he's currently 9 months. And having being new parents, like you got to put things on pause, right? I kind of put pause reading, but I do a lot of podcasts, right? Here when I travel over 45 minutes, I hear audiobooks, or I hear Spotify, Bigger Pockets, and just to get more of that learning curvature, right, into your mind.
So do you plan on investing in real estate, or are you currently?
So putting into my real estate, I'm under contract right now for a 3-unit building. So that's the my investment that I'm trying to approach. I own currently my home. I refinanced my home, guys, when the market was low. I pulled out money, and that's how I'm buying this other unit, right?
What's your goal? How many do you want to own?
You know what? I don't have. At first, I had told myself I wanted to buy 25. But you know what? At this point, as many as it takes to be financially free.
When you say
right?
financially free, like, what does that mean to you?
So financially free, if for me is me not worrying a thing about money, right? If I want to take a month long trip to Mexico or any other country,
So you're gonna quit on your dad?
you know what? Good thing you're bringing this up. I not quitting on him. When he quits, I'm quitting with him. You know. So I've told everybody, I'm like, the day my dad quits, like I'm just stepping back.
Do you guys invest together though? You and him?
No, this is where the difference comes into play, right? I searched for this financial literature, right? And my dad, he's still stuck in this whole situation where like I have to work extra hours, right? Make extra money and assure like, my family has everything set, right? He does not realize that, you can still achieve great finance, right? Without putting 10 hours a day, right? You can work 8 hours a day. You can work 6 hours a day. Crap, I read somewhere where the CEO of Amazon, I don't know the current CEO. No, that was before. There's another one. That for him a good day is when he makes one good judgment on the whole Amazon company, right? And I was like, whoa, like he can come in whenever he wants at the office, right? Obviously, they have a set schedule. They wake up early, work out, and all this good stuff. But for them, like one good judgment, that was it. Like they made their their day's work, for the company. So I want to get to that point, right? Just one judgment, one call, like do this, boom. That's where I want to plan on being.
All right, so I guess the next thing I kind of want to segue into is just how did you scale your business? Because you scaled your business from the ground up, and I think you did it in a crucial point of your life, especially when you had your first kid.
Yeah.
So how was that transition, going, just number one, growing your business and then doing it while one of the hardest times of your life?
Yeah, so guys, I don't take full credit for this. A lot has to do again with my dad, because my dad is my partner, my business partner. And I've always told him, like, we're here 50-50, like put in the time, I put in my time, and when I scaled up, I like to point out that, give my father credit for it, because it was all through him. If it wasn't for him coming to America, God knows what I would have been doing, So, scaling up, a lot had to do with cutting old boundaries, right? What I mean by this, like, my dad had this mindset that you still grab a notebook and take notes, right? You still grab a notebook and write receipts. I'm like, Dad, you're doing that old school. And like, there's computers, there's Excel, there's programs. I'm like, let's upgrade. And for me to implement the upgrades, right? I guess, or I assume that's how we started slowly growing and growing. So
you got carpal tunnel?
I'm sorry?
You got carpal tunnel?
No, thank God I did not.
Right?
No. But there is carpal tunnel for the mechanics. I thought that's what you were referring. Yeah, they say if you grab the pneumatic gun, that gun continues pounding you here and gets one of your nerves or something like that. And mechanics lose their touch. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for real. That's
common,
the thing.
huh?
That is common for mechanics. Yeah. My professor had carpal tunnel. He lost sense. And he couldn't grab a proper pen. Like, he would randomly drop it because he thought he had it. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But I thought that's what you were referring. But my apologies. No, I do not have carpal tunnel for writing so much on the pen. It's more on typing now, But
oh my God, when I was in Colombia, so I don't know if it was all places, but I had returned an item. I'm assuming it's just like a quick service in America. They just scan the barcode and you're good. I mean, this girl pulled out a whole notebook, like 10 minutes, writing out the receipt number.
Oh, wow.
We don't realize the luxuries that we have over here, how advanced we are. And we just met with a girl that started her business in Puerto Rico, and not so many tax benefits. It's a whole nother story. You got to watch that one. But there's a lot cheaper things over there, like tax wise. Everything is a lot cheaper over there. But she's like, you don't understand how advanced you guys are and how advanced the things you guys have over here. Like, there's a lot of tax benefits over there, but at the same time, they pay less taxes, but the things that they have over there aren't as advanced as what we have. So we didn't realize the systems that we have in place that, the luxuries of going return so they pick it up. All right, time to go store credit or it'll go back in your credit card. It's not as advanced as what we have right now.
You're right. We're living the dream, guys.
Right.
How long did it take you to convince your dad?
Yeah.
So it wasn't much about convincing. Convincing him in the aspect of switching to computer, right?
Yeah, updating software.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was more so I'm like, Dad, we need to be more civil, right? We need to we live in the 21st century, right? We need to do something about, no longer using pen and paper. I'm like, there's the computers. I'm like, let me leave this to me. And I've always told him, I'm like, listen, leave the office administration to me, right? You take care of fixing the cars and I will take care of providing you the work. And I've repeated it so many times to my dad that eventually caught on, right? Now my dad has no business in what I do in the administrative level of the shop, right?
Okay.
But I did tell him, I'm like, hey, we're business partners. I'm like, tell me how the finances are going, what were the losses? Like, I would love for you to get involved in, how much profit did we make this week or last month, whatever, right? But he has the pure assumption that since it's me only on the office, that's my job. But I do welcome him to come over and see, hey, Dad, this is how much we made, right? Funny story, I want to point this out. When it was a couple months ago, me and my father were having a discussion about money. And I told him, like, hey, I want to reach higher. I want to become a millionaire, right? Yeah. Straight up. I told him, I want to become a millionaire. And he told me with a straight face, well, you know what? Good for you. I'm never going to see that in my lifetime. And when last year, when I ran finance and I saw how much we sold, we sold 7 figures. I was like, whoa, and I was telling my dad, I was like, this is how much we sold. And he got shy. He's like, whoa, and who would have thought, like 7 figures in a small 4-bay shop. Like that for me, that's one of my top accomplishments, right? Getting to that margin. But
how'd you get there so fast? I mean,
so it wasn't, I wouldn't say fast because it took me 6 years, right?
That's pretty
I first recollected on year 1, I was like, am I doing this right? I'm like, because I was seeing small profits and we were working 10, 12 hours a day. I'm like, what's going on? And I had to tweak things, right? I had to better charge. I had to better, if we were using coolants, fluids, whatever, charge the fluids. We didn't charge them before. It was like a free gesture for the customer that came by our doors. And I was like, no, we have to charge for this, So it's not being greedy. It's like, it's the business, right? The business pays for this. So pass it over to the customer, right? Customer's not going to complain if at the end of the day you got them straight and they're back in the road, right?
Yeah. Question. So I think this is a good thing to talk about, which is, talking about people increasing prices or putting prices on stuff that they haven't charged. So your current existing customers who are used to the freebies, how do you get them to accept? Yeah, because that's hard. That's hard to go backwards, right? Coming from free and all of a sudden.
Especially you being...
you're charging me for cooling now. It was free before.
And they're probably like, oh, no, this guy comes in. Who is this guy? Oh, that I want to go back to the guy who's giving,
Correct. Very good question. It's so funny. Those customers stopped coming. And it was for the good because for whatever reason, my company started going up ever since I started implementing that small thing, right, about charging the freebies. And there were some customers that are like, oh, you guys are too expensive. I'm like, okay, well, call me when you are in need of our services. And I will cut them off like that. I'm like, in reality, you don't need those bad apples, so to speak, right? I'm like, I've been flourishing with other customers. And there's customers where they have so much trust in us as the whole shop. Like, Fernando, do whatever you have to do. It could be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Do what you got to do. I trust you. And it feels so good when they tell you that. It's like, no, I trust your professionalism. I trust your operations. I trust your team. Go ahead and fix the vehicle. And for me, those have been highlights in my career because that shows that I'm doing something right. Right. And there's been a couple handful of customers that they just come and drop out their car, fix the car, give them the final bill at the end of the day, and they pay it. I was like, whoa, like those are the customers I actually want to keep. Those are the customers I will give the freebies for. Yeah. And the Chicago Auto Show was in February, right? And what I ended up doing was I bought a lot of tickets. Every customer that came by the doors and purchased something, at least an oil change, here's 2 free tickets. People got they were so happy. They were like, oh my God, free? I was like, yeah, free. Yeah, go. Just 2 per customer, Yeah. And they're like, whoa, so that tactic worked out a lot because, those same customers continue to come back, right? I've done, when we first turned 5 years last year, I went all out. I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I'm throwing a party. He's like, what? It's like, yeah, I'm getting a barbecue. I'm getting DJ. I'm closing shop. Everybody, all the customers, I made flyers like, hey, like it's 5-year anniversary. Come by, enjoy free food, free music, free gifts. And it was a big success, like.
That's freaking awesome. Bro.
Yeah. We threw a big party for the 5 years and hoping to do it for the 10 years, right? Yeah. Probably go a little bit bigger, but it's all these complimentary things that I have for them. To get into a personal note as well, like one of my business models is like get to know your customer too, right? Whenever a new customer comes by, I'm like, hey, Mr. Bob, who referred you over? Oh, it was Mr. Jane, whatever, right? I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you for giving us a shot, and I hope we can at least get the expectations that you're looking for. And when I build that connection with them, I try to take it upon myself to call them because I have a team at the office. I try to call them myself because I was the one that initiated the conversation. I'm like, hey, Mr. J, Mr. Bob, car is going to need this, and that. Like, oh, thank you, Fernando. Thank you for your professionalism. You explained it very good. Go ahead and fix the car. And they won't even hesitate about the price. Could be $5, could be $7, could be $1,000, Yeah. But building those relationships in the personal level has actually helped me, right? And retain my customer base. Another portion of this has been Google. I've asked customers to, hey, can you leave us a Google review? And if you go through our webpage, you'll see through Google, like majority of those are 5-star, 4-star reviews. And that I'm like, whoa, like that's very complimentary to me because it shows that I'm actually doing something right. And in some of those comments, just to point out, I've read where like, oh, this shop is so honest, is so welcoming. The person you need to talk to is Fernando. They point out or say my name specifically. I'm like, whoa, I'm like, I impacted this customer, and it feels very good because a lot of more people see the reviews on Google, and for some instances, I've asked other customers, I'm like, hey, how did you hear about us? And they be going like, oh, I looked you up through Google. I put Auto Shop and I saw your reviews. You guys had phenomenal reviews, so I decided to make an appointment. I was like, well, thank you for trusting us with your vehicle, So all this has intertwines with one another, and sure enough, it's helped me a lot growing my business, right? So yeah, going to the 7 figures, like it's That's been through awesome, customer relationships, it's been through word of mouth, it's been through social media, it's been through Google reviews, that's how I've been scaling up in a fast way.
It's a little bit of everything. I think that in order for any business to be successful, you have to hit almost every avenue in terms of service, in terms of lead generation. You have to hit almost every single avenue on how to generate business, right? And I think it's not only just walking the walk, but talking the talk, like being a part of the community, doing the things, the 5-year anniversaries, actually showing your face in the community on why people should actually invest in your business and why should they use your services against all the other car businesses around the world, and building that trust and rapport, I think is super important. But I guess what was your motive? What was your why? What kept you going in order for you to get to the place that you're at right now?
You know what? My why has changed over the years. At first was to, like not disappoint my parents, right? Then it evolved into like, I need to build this or scale this a little bit more bigger, right? Then after that was I got married. I need to, set an example for my wife. Then
How did you guys meet anyway? You and your wife?
Me and my wife, we have been we met in high school. But funny story is like we never talked in high school. 4 years passed, and then we had mutual friends. We met. We got to a cookout, and I was like, "Oh, that's so and so," and we reconnected. Some way I got her number by telling her where a good ice cream place was at, and after that, the rest is history. Yeah, we hooked up, and then we were dating for 2 years. Then I proposed to her, and we got married, and nice, now we have a beautiful 9-month-old child, and now we have twins on the way. So, rest is history. But yeah, where were we right now?
What's your why?
My why. So it's been changing over the years. Now, my why is setting the example for my kids. Right.
So just like what your dad did for you.
Exactly. But me in a little bit differently, right? Because I've been through society, right? I've been through America. I've read books. I've heard podcasts. For instance, life insurance. Apparently, it was never a thing, right? It's so funny how I came about with life insurance because my wife's dad had passed away about 10 years ago, and it was for whatever reason he was very smart about it. Apparently, my then father-in-law, he took out a life insurance policy 2 years before he passed away. He didn't even know, right, that he was not going to be here no more. And with that life insurance, my mother-in-law bought her home, bought a minivan, and, the little money that she got from the life insurance kind of help push her daughters and her son forward, right? My wife she got her master's in she's a clinical social worker, right? So she does therapy. She got her master's and she wants to go back to school, right? Obviously, but not right now with the whole babies on the way. But with the life insurance, when I first started dating her, her mom told my parents about life insurance, and we didn't know what. I'm like, life insurance for what? It's like, it's an extra $20 a month that I'm not going to have in my pocket. That's how typical people view it as, right? And sure enough, like, you come to find out, like, that's how the wealthy, retain their wealth. Like, their life, the life insurance that, let's say, a grandparent has or keeps buying, he tells the grandkids, you're going to continue paying my life insurance. When I pass, you're going to be the beneficiary. And that's how the kids are said, right? Yeah. So I learned that, and I was like, whoa. And to this day, I got 3 life insurance policies on me. Oh, and I was like, if whatever happens, one to cover the business, one to cover my dad, being my business partner, one to cover my wife, So, yeah, life insurance was never a thing. We never thought about it in my household, right, with my parents. But learning through what it could actually do for generations. So I was like, I got to get in that, So, yeah.
It's crazy, like financial literacy in just within our culture is just, it's not taught, it's something that you got to go out and search for. And I think that's when I first got into my industry and doing a podcast, I always tell people podcast for me is fun. Outside of business, this is just more so fun for me, and connecting with people is how I grew my business, right? And you're doing that right now. You're networking a bunch, and I want to touch base on networking, how important it is to grow as an individual, but I wanted to bring forth networking to people, this podcast for people who don't know about life insurance, for the people in our culture or people outside of our culture could learn about situations like that, and they can actually do their research on these things, because honestly, I don't know much about life insurance, right? I love just financial literacy overall, because I love to kind of look at numbers. I do that. That's my job. I look at numbers all day to kind of figure out everyone's financial situation. Sure. But it's just so important for me to just give back to the community in that light, because people like you, right, who has family members that weren't able to take advantage of life insurance and to become their own banks, and I've heard that term so much over the last couple of months, just because a lot of people are taking advantage these life insurance policies. So it's pretty cool.
That's true. That's
hear
true.
That, you know,
come to find out, you can pull out your specific life insurance. You can pull out money and then buy an asset with it.
Yeah.
And I got one of those, and this gentleman by the name of Saul, I should introduce you to him.
Yeah,
He's the one that helped me set it up, right? And he's like, yeah, you can use this for buying real estate. I was like, get me in, you know? So I ended up doing the deal with him, and he guided me through it. And it's just a waiting game at this point, right? Just let the life insurance build up on its own. And I also just opened a Roth IRA, right? Another friend of mine, he's like, hey, you know, you should look into the Roth. I'm like, isn't it like the same thing as like owning stocks or something? It's like, no, it accumulates compound. I was like, okay. I mean, for me, anything that's revolving around money, I'm like, okay, I'll hear, you know. It's because I don't want to stay in the same level where I'm at, right? 10, 15 years from now, I want to be higher, right? So I can give a better life to my family, right? So I opened the Roth IRA. I've been owning stocks for a couple of years already. I'm more of a Tesla fan, so all my stocks are in Tesla, right? And a little bit here and there, the spares with other companies, but yeah, you know, for me, it's like putting a little bit here, letting it accumulate.
But do you see how those like just connecting with people and having a conversation with people allowed you to do things like that?
Yeah.
Right. And it's sudden conversations that you don't even expect to have that allows you to do those things. Because I had a similar situation for me. It was simply a high yield savings account. Putting in where you get a higher amount of interest on just keeping money in an account. That's true. Right. And I had a conversation with my cousin, and that same day I did it. Right. Because you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. Oh, okay, why didn't I just do it? And it's like through connecting with people, and not only just my cousin and my family. Imagine if you talk to enough individuals to where you learn off their life experience to grow for yourself, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I think the biggest theme that we kind of jumped over is just kind of like to inspire people to take that risk in entrepreneurship. What you talked about, your dad, you know, taking that risk and how it impacts the next generation. And I know you always give this scenario about the analogy about the tree, right?
Yeah.
You know, talking about one plants the seed, then one nurtures it, the next generation nurtures it, and the other one picks the fruit, and the other one then makes lemonade, you know, whatever, right? So it's...
If I can add to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
My dad was the one that taught me where to dig. I'm the one that's planting the seed. I'm planting another seed here. I'm planting another seed there, you know. So
and then your kids are hopefully gonna water the tree and allow it to grow.
Trees,
and what I love about your story, bro, is it truly does show and that you have to take the risk, and you can't really think about failure.
Yeah.
But when you have that one individual that's with you that doesn't think that they're gonna fail at all, it almost feels like the plan isn't crazy. And so when you don't feel like the plan isn't crazy, you just go full steam ahead, and you want to make the plan, and you guys are going to make the plan work. Right. There's no other choice about that. And what I love about it is it just depicts this imagery of, for me at least, that anybody could do it. Your dad was doing that as a garage. If you really want it, you'll figure it out. And both of you guys always put your head down and didn't even think about failing. Because when I first, you know, got into the same thing, I had a mentor. And my mentor was like, this is what I did. And I was like, okay. I followed the footsteps. I didn't question it. Jump, how high, right? It was just like figure out all the things that he did, recreate the wheel. And I never even thought about failing. And naturally, just through hard work, if you work hard and you find somebody that's actually going to help guide you in these, a lot of times you just won't fail. But I really listened to a book. I listened to an audiobook for Russ. And I don't know if you guys know the artist Russ. His book was an amazing book because it makes you feel like the goals that you're trying to accomplish aren't crazy. And when he first became an artist, he was making music. No one was really listening to his music. And over time, he was like, you know, I don't know. I feel like my dreams are a little bit crazy. But his mom was that person. I was like, no, keep going. You know, you got it. You're fine. And it made him condition himself to be like, oh, maybe my goals aren't crazy. You fast forward. Now he's a huge artist now, right? So I feel like if you find that person, find someone to motivate you and find it within yourself to do it for yourself, there's no goals that you can't accomplish. You know, I love you guys' story, bro. I absolutely love
appreciate
your story.
It, bro. And like I said, I'm not done yet, right? Eventually, I want to buy more real estate. That's my end goal. I want to buy more real estate. I want to jump into the 20, 30, 40, 50 unit apartment buildings, right? And I'm right now in a search for a mentor, right? I've heard and read that you need to get a mentor. And I was like, okay, you know, I've been trying to search for a mentor for a while, and the search still keeps going, right? Because the mentors, the whole purpose is to, you know, if it's going to take you 10 years, a mentor can help you do it in 2 years possibly, right? So it's reducing that time, because time is key, right? You're trying to retain all the time in the world.
And I bet a lot of people are probably questioning, like, well, I don't have a mentor, where can I get it? It's doing the things that you're doing. You know, finding social events, finding events in the field that you want to get into, just attending these things and meeting the people around there. And at some point in time, you're going to find someone that clicks with you. Maybe you have a different personality. That's fine. There's an individual for you that will connect with you, and that person might so happen to be your mentor. That'll allow you to achieve all the dreams that you want to accomplish in a shorter period of time, because ultimately, as a business owner, there's going to be landmines, right? And if you don't know and don't see those landmines and you step on it, it's just going to delay your time. But if a mentor is like, hey, look, I already did this. There's a landmine right there. If you go around it, it will save you some time. Now, at that point in time, you can wash your hands. You go around the landmine, and you are just achieving your goals a lot quicker than what someone else might be, you know?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, good way of putting it. Yeah, but it's all life lessons, right? Yeah. It's for what reason are you doing this for, right? You got to put goals as well. But you know, think bigger and see if you can achieve everything, right? All your goals that you set out to pursue.
Well, yeah, and I kind of want to finish off by this. You know, I know you've already achieved a mass amount of success. I know for you yourself, and a lot of people who have that entrepreneurial like mindset, they're already like, I don't think I'm doing enough. There's more. You're always hungry for more, because that's just that's our heart. That's our heart speaking, and we're always gonna want more. But where do you envision yourself? At what age do you envision yourself being what you called during the beginning of the show financially free?
I've talked to my peers about this, and for me, that age is 45.
45.
So I'm trying to build whatever I can before 45, because at 46, I want to go off, lay back, and let my money make more money, and, you know, not worry a thing about finances.
Yeah, I do got one last question is, you know, what's 3 tips that you give a young entrepreneur getting into business? So what's your 3 biggest tips for them?
Tip number 1, I would recommend get informed. Right? Get informed to see what it takes. Consult with people that have done it already. That's a very good tip. Tip number 2 would be go out and do it. A lot of people just think it, and they don't take the first step. Like, go ahead and do the first step, right? Because if you're still contemplating it and you don't do nothing, eventually a year, 2 years, 5 years are going to pass by, and you're like, oh man, I should have done this way before, right? And now they've wasted all that time just without taking any action. And 3 is read. Like I told my younger brother, I'm like, hey, like, pick up a book. You know, if you are interested in a subject, continue to read. I was never the A student in my class, man. I was skipping school and all that in high school, right? And who would have thought, you know, at age 25, 26, 27, like, I will start reading right now. I try to wake up early before the baby wakes up. I'm like, hey, catch a good 30 minutes of reading, you know. When I'm at work and I'm driving a car, I'm like, if it's not reading, hear a podcast, right? And get informed. So, I mean, obtain that knowledge. Pick up a book and read. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I want to end this by saying thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Fernando, for being here. Thank you, Mark, for being here. I really do appreciate it. If you guys enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, turn on them post notifications. We're here for amazing content, and listen to everything Fernando said, because I'm telling you right now, it's life-changing, guys. So appreciate you guys' time, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Take care. Bye.